Kyrgyzstan, or Kirghizistan, a name that is not easy to pronounce and for many of us a country difficult to locate on a world map. This is very unfairly a relatively unknown country, although it is located in the heart of Central Asia and used to be crossed by the legendary Silk Road. This harsh, white country, bordered to the south by the Pamir-Altai Massif, which joins the foothills of the Himalayas, and flanked from east to west by the celestial mountains called Tian Shan, proves to be a case of raw nature, revealing an incredible variety of sceneries such as steppes, canyons, dazzling valleys, sapphire lakes, high plateaus, and impressive peaks over 7,000 meters. Kyrgyzstan is a former USSR republic that gained its independence in 1991 and is 4 times smaller than France. It shares borders with Kazakhstan to the north, China to the southeast, Tajikistan to the southwest, and Uzbekistan to the west. It is a country of yaks, horses, sheep, and nomads who have preserved their ancestral traditions, their way of life, and their hospitality. And this is our August 2021 road trip. After a flash passage and a night in Bishkek, where we first meet our driver, Askat, we take the road in the morning toward the Susamir Valley, 4 hours from the country capital and nearly 2,500 meters above sea level. We reach our camp at the time of the mare milking, which takes place 4 to 8 times a day. The milk would be used to prepare the kumis, which is the national drink, to which a dose of alcohol is added, and which is frequently stirred to allow its fermentation and give it a strong and smoky taste. The wind is blowing hard, causing the clouds to budge. We walk on the slope of the hills to discover grandiose spaces and also to acclimatize slowly to the altitude. Our camp, that is run by a family who also raises a number of horses, is made up of a handful of yurts, including a central one where travelers gather to take meals. At daybreak, it is less than 10 degrees. The sky is a brilliant blue. Horses, some of which have both front legs hobbled, roam freely around as do goats. After a frugal breakfast, we leave one valley to enter another that have tree and go along the Chub River on dry tracks for several hours up to the village of Kyzyloy in the heart of the Silk Road and to the old Muslim cemetery located at its top. The surroundings are stunning. The valley of Kyzyloy, which names mean Red Basin because of the color of the surrounding hills, the winding rivers in the middle of green meadows, the dark and rugged mountains which restrict the skyline. After a first puncture briefly repaired, we crossed the last kilometers of a very ruined track which climbs steeply to Lake Sunkol, where we have planned to spend the night. A herd of about 50 yaks moves by waving under the impulse of 2 riders. Amazing show. Sunkol Lake is the largest freshwater nature reserve in Kyrgyzstan. 90 kilometers in circumference, a surface of 275 square meters, and an average depth of 15 meters. It is nestled in the hollow of a basin surrounded by mountain ridges at an altitude of 3,000 meters and is only accessible from June to September because it is now covered 150 days a year and serves as summer pasture for thousands of horses, cattle and goats. It is also the heartland of many species of birds, but also wolves, foxes, marmots, and even snow leopards. A few yurt camps are scattered around its shores. We spent the night in one of them, buried under a ton of blankets and duvets to face the cold. The temperature drops terribly at the end of the day, even in August, and ends up stabilizing around 2 degrees once the sun has set. After breakfast, we go for a horseback ride around the camp without a guide, with rather docile animals accustomed to this kind of exercise. For our third day, we have planned to reach the town of Tamshi, 100-500 meters below, on the north shore of Lake Isyk-Kul. We repair a second percher, then we have a 2-hour drive on a track, and as much on bitumen in the heart of an outstanding panorama in the province of Koshkor. We stop to greet a herd of camels ruminating without a guardian at the edge of a water reservoir. Tamshi is a small seaside town valued by Kyrgyz and Russians for its beaches on the bank of Lake Isyk-Kul, the second largest mountain lake in the world after Titicaca, straddling Peru and Bolivia, but we stop there for its summer festival, a classic of Kyrgyz activities, eagle hunters first. Ten songs in traditional outfits. And various contests on horseback, such as the Teen Enemy. The rider gallops off to pick up the scarf on the coin left on the ground without slowing down. Horseback fighting. The game purpose is to try and unseat the opponent from his horse. And the famous Kokboru, a national sport with a long-standing tradition, known as Zoroastrianism, which brings together all the countries of Central Asia each year for an international tournament, a kind of polo during which riders fight over a headless goat carcass. Once caught, it must be carried to the opposite goal named Kazan, which means cauldron. The next day, we continue our riding along Lake Isyk-Kul to stop at its eastern end in the village of Karakol, a former outpost of the Tsarist army. A Russian village atmosphere, with particularly the Trinity Church, still active and very popular with the Orthodox community, which represents 15% of believers, while more than 80% of Kyrgyz people are Muslims. Actually, the later attend the Duncan Mosque, built by a Chinese architect, also all in wood, but without a single nail. A wedding has just been celebrated there when we visit the place. Sunday morning, 7 a.m., market day 2 kilometers from the center of Karakol. It starts before sunrise and ends in the late morning. This is where the Kyrgyz sell and trade livestock. Known for its horses, which sell for between 600 and 1,000 euros, the market also brings together cows, around 700 euros, sheep, 50 euros, and goats, 30 to 60 euros, in a huge bazaar. Discussions, fierce negotiations, the animals are felt, palpated, measured, their jaws wide open to check their teeth. There is also the fat-tailed sheep, a very old breed renowned for its meat. The tail, full of fat, weighs an average of 5 to 7 kilos and is widely used in cooking. The different communities rub shoulders there in perfect harmony. Many men wear the country's traditional high kalpak felt hat, listed as intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO, whose shape evokes the snow-capped mountains of Kirghizstan. The blacksmith's little shop is always full. Middle of the day. We are now on the southern slope of the lake, en route to the Red Rock Canyon of GTO Goose and the Kokzait Valley, also called the Valley of Flowers. At an altitude of 2,800 meters, the landscape, made up mainly of spices, becomes totally alpine. A magnificent waterfall pours out into the middle of the forest. A few yurts intended for travelers dot the grassy slopes here and there. The end of the daylight gilds the surrounding mountains. We take a good track to discover the canyon of Skaska, a real pearl of Kyrgyzstan. A sort of Martian valley, a contrast of shapes and colors created by millions of years of erosion. It consists of different colored clays, scenic minerals and rocks. One can see the outlines of various sculptures made by the nature itself. The most famous is a wall that recalls the ruins of the Great Wall of China. It is an incredible palette of rock colors enhanced by the raking light. Close to the village of Bokompaevo, our driver has arranged for us a demonstration of eagle hunting with the best hunter in the country, crowned the previous year, as well as archery. The eagle will not give the rabbit a chance. We are at the heart of the Tian Shan Mountains and drive straight south towards Narin, a town that takes its name from the river that crosses it. The panorama seems to constantly renew itself. It is stunningly beautiful. We drive along roads and tracks as straight as an eye to reach our southernmost point, Tashrabat, 80 kilometers from the Chinese border.
Et notre ami Askat.
Hi,
Voilà.
how are you? We are going to Atbash, Tashrabat.
The caravanserai of Tashrabat, which means stone fortress, is wedged at the bottom of a picturesque gorge at 3,600 meters altitude. It is believed to have been built between the 10th and 15th centuries at the beginning of the Great Silk Road by Christians, with the initial purpose of serving as a monastery. Of course, people slept there but also bought food, could change horses, or even negotiate goods with the local population. It is a kind of fort 20 meters high, surmounted by a large dome, which also has a well, a dungeon, and several dozen rooms where travelers once lodged. The surroundings of the stone building alone are worth seeing. The immense valley, punctuated by a few hills, seems to stretch on forever. The nomads settle here for the summer, for the pictures, but also to welcome the few rare tourists passing through. Early afternoon, we take the dusty track that leads to Baitov. It first passes through the Kulak Ashruk Pass, where cows and yaks enjoy themselves on the slopes of the hills in total freedom in the middle of a wonderful panorama. Nobody camps lines the road from time to time. The second pass, Borulu-Ashwu, reveals a breathtaking panorama. We will take a long break there to imbue ourselves with the place. Ruins of ancient mausoleums also merge with the Oka mountains that surround them. During the last kilometers, the track passes in an arid zone of badlands with lunar landscapes. We close our Kirghiz loop by this fascinating place, which is the Konorchek Canyon, 125 kilometers from the capital, often compared to the Great American Canyon. This is the best time to explore this fascinating maze of gorges and columns, a warren of twisted walls and red sandstone rocks that stretches for kilometers all along the bed of a dry river. We have to walk and sometimes carefully climb the crumbly rocks for almost 4 kilometers in the bed of a dry river at the bottom of a narrow gorge to reach the heart of Konorchek. We can see how magnificent the place is. From the main clearing radiate small and large canyons, the most important of which have been named Skyscraper, Bobsleigh and Grand Canyon. The place is gigantic, oversized. Last stop before Bishkek, the city of Tokmok, some 60 kilometers from the capital. We strolled through the daily market, a classic Kirghizistan bazaar, where you can find a wide variety of fruits and as many herbs, vegetables, much brighter and bigger than those we are used to seeing in France, in a relaxed and rather joyful atmosphere.
Что вам?
After 12 days of road trip and a little more than 2,000 kilometers, we were able to fully appreciate the richness Kirghizistan can offer. Fabulous sceneries, a wild nature, as if immaculate where the animals roam freely, an interesting cultural mosaic, a welcoming, warm population, and a tradition of nomadism which continues and makes its originality. In summary, an intact and authentic country.